Hey everybody, it's Jason Wahal with Ice Cream Fitness here. I wasn't going to do a second video today, but there was a breaking news story today. Tyson Gray, the 100-meter champion, tested positive for a banned substance today. He's not going to be allowed to go to the championships in Moscow next month. I'm going to link a news story down below, and I want to discuss this just a little bit for you guys. But hold on, let me give you guys a bicep shot first. Alright, it seems this is a case of, since he says he put his trust in someone else and they let him down, this is probably going to be one of those cases to where he didn't get a drug that he thought he was getting, or someone gave him a timing protocol that didn't work to clear for the test, which does happen a lot. That's usually how your big champions get popped, because they break away from the traditional stuff that we know works. I've broken down for you guys how easy it is to pass drug testing. I used to get my guys through random drug testing in the off season really easily. No one ever got caught. It's just not that difficult if you know what you're doing. If you're willing to use some of the more painful and annoying stuff that clears within 12 hours for a test, things like testosterone suspension, HGH. If you're smart with the use of those, you could pass every drug test known to man, in season, out season. It's not going to matter. You can pass them easily as long as you know how to time the injections and how to work around when you think they're going to test you. And with things like the Olympics, they give you 3 misses a year anyway. So if you know you're going to test positive, you need another 4 hours or 8 hours to come up clean, and they show up at your door, you can just refuse. You can do that up to 3 times. So not really a big deal for these top athletes. It's when people need stronger drugs because they're trying to be ultra competitive, like Tyson here. And I don't know what he tested positive for, and they may cover it up because he's a big name with a lot of sponsorship, so they might go back to the cough medicine, cold medicine thing. Oh, he tested for something in his cold medicine, rather than admitting what it really was, which they do all the time, if it's someone who's important enough. But if the powers that be there want the media to crucify someone, they'll go ahead and say it was a specific anabolic or something. But in his case, it's most likely a case of he wanted something stronger, so he probably went to one of these other labs, just like Balco. And if you guys have seen all the stuff with Victor Conte, he went into detail, tons of detail, about how he manufactured all these drugs for all of these tested athletes that were undetectable, and how they would keep new ones in design, and as soon as they would start detecting metabolites on one athlete out of the thousands that he was selling it to, he would rotate the new batch of stuff in that was undetectable. And they would have 2 or 3 in production, in development ahead of time, while they've got one out being used. So they would only have 1 steroid in circulation at a time. So he probably went to that, or he did something silly like try to buy Turinabol and bought Winstrol or something instead. Because Turinabol was really popular, even though it was designed in the 1950s. It clears for a drug test sometimes as quick as 72 hours. So it is still popular among tested athletes. So it could have been something like that for him. And at the end of the day, you guys know my stance on this. The whole reason this stuff is even banned in sports, even though they can't really catch anybody, even though everybody on the field is using it, comes down to what our governments have basically said on this, and what Congress has said in the US, is that if we tell the children, and they do this to protect the children, and you know that's what jackasses do in politics, they hide behind the children. But to protect the children so that they don't know that all their heroes are on performance-enhancing drugs, we keep them illegal, and we make a public show of cracking down on them in sports. But the reality is that it's such horseshit. What they don't want people to know is that their hands are dirty, and our governments, and particularly the US government, their hands are just as dirty as any of the coaches in the labs who are manufacturing this stuff and making sure that their athletes get these. They have a vested interest in that, and it's been uncovered multiple times in the past. And they're basically covering their own reputation at this point, because they started this whole thing. The US government is one of the 2 governments that's responsible for all of this starting and the use of anabolic steroids in athletes. So it's really just a dog and pony show, a PR job. And it just pisses me off that they love to hide behind the children. And what I say is that if you really want to protect the children, you need to let them know this ahead of time, before they get their hopes and dreams up to becoming a professional athlete and start working their ass off for it for 4 or 5 years. If nobody is telling them ahead of time, before they get to the point to where they find out that the entire field that they're competing with is on drugs and they're going to have to use them, if maybe they got a heads up ahead of time, maybe, just maybe, they would back out and not get forced into a lifestyle of lying in order to fulfill the dream that they spent 5 years busting their ass to achieve and finally made it towards. If you really want to protect the children, be honest with them and let them know what to expect. And this whole lying bullshit that we do to them to tell them, oh, that it's really the hard work and we catch the cheaters, and they put their hopes and dreams in it, and then they get to the university level and then they find out that everybody in the pro ranks of their sport is on 3 or 4 or 5, 10 different drugs. And that if they want to go pro, they're going to have to do the same thing 99% of the time. And then they've already invested their life into it. So what do you think they're going to do? Alright guys, well that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you next time.